Hi there, this is Todd with Industrial Comfort. In an earlier video, I made these candlesticks, and I thought to myself, this is such a great project for the beginner wood turner that I would do it again and I'd take a more instructional approach. The other thing I'm going to do this time is include a steel candle insert to prevent any fires should the candle burn all the way down. So if you're new to wood turning, not only is this an excellent project, but it will allow you to hone your skills on both the rough and gouge and the bowl gouge, which personally I really like to create the contours for these candlesticks. So let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is select your stock. In this case, I'm using another piece of American elm. It is 2 inches by 2 inches by 15 inches long. And I'm going to make 2 candlesticks from this. Now, personally, I like them to be asymmetric. You can cut it in half and make 2 that are identical in size, entirely up to you. But the second thing we're going to do is create a small tenon on each side. So you'll notice that I'm turning between centers, which means I'm using a headstock spur and a tailstock spur. Now, if I were to cut this in the center, everything would just fall down. So the purpose of the tenon is so that I can fit it in the chuck like this, and then I can drill the hole for the candle insert. So again, first thing we're going to do is cut the tenons. I'll also round this over so we get a nice cylindrical form, and then we'll move on to the next step. A minute ago I mentioned that I was going to round over this piece of wood and cut extra tenons on either end so that I could fit it into the chuck for the next step. Well, it turns out that this is narrow enough that I don't need to create extra tenons. So once we have this chucked up, I'm going to cut it to the desired length, which again is personal preference depending on the size of the candlesticks that you're looking for, and then we'll move on to the drilling phase for the steel candle insert. The next step is to core a hole in this candlestick to accommodate the steel candle insert. Now, this is registering 0.9 inches below the lip of the insert, so I prefer to not use an inch wide bit. Instead, I'm opting for something a little narrower, which is a 7/8 inch bit, and then I'll increase the size of the hole to accommodate this more comfortably. I prefer to use Forstner bits for projects like this because they create a really smooth, clean cut. The next step of this project is to use a bowl gouge to begin the process of contouring the candlestick. The first thing I'm going to do is narrow the end of this candlestick so that I have about 1/4 inch around the circumference of this steel insert. Then I'm going to measure the depth of the insert so I know exactly where I can begin the process of narrowing the neck. Next step is to remove the tailstock here and start sanding. Correction, there's one more thing I'm going to do before sanding, and that's cut a line here so that I can sand down to the point at which I'm going to cut it once I'm done with the final finish. Now before I take this candlestick off the lathe, I'm going to apply the final finish, and for that I'm going to be using a homemade friction polish. This stuff is amazing. It goes on really fast, leaves a beautiful luster to your pieces. I'll leave a link in the description to another video I made which explains what this is, how to make it, and how to apply it. Once I'm done, we'll cut this off, we'll sand the bottom, we'll epoxy in the candle insert, and we'll be done. I'm going to use my random orbital sander just to sand the bottom down to smooth it out with some 220 grit. I'm then going to epoxy in the candle insert and we'll be done with this project. I'm going to apply some walnut oil to the bottoms here where I've just sanded, and then instead of using epoxy for the candle inserts, I've decided to use clear caulking instead. It's going to be a little easier to apply and a little less messy. Apologies that the previous frame got cut a little short. My camera ran out of batteries. As you can see, this is the finished product. As I was making the other candlestick to match this one, I ended up cutting some bands using my parting tool and then just filled with some red acrylic paint. You also notice that we added the steel inserts for safety purposes in case the candle burns all the way down. And don't forget to check out the other video that shows you how to make the friction polish that gives it this luster. I hope you found this helpful. It's a super great way to get familiar with your lathe tools. It's a very easy project for beginners and novices, and they make great gifts. So if you found this helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks.